Welcome back to Movies Recapped. Today I will show you a South Korean comedy drama from 2016. Titled My Annoying Brother. Spoilers ahead, watch out and enjoy. The movie opens in a judo contest area where two men fight to break a tie as the commentator desk gets heated with intense comments filling up the tension. Do-young is flipped and pinned down by his opponent for an additional half point, but no sooner had his opponent's team relaxed a muscle onto their seats than Do-young executed a sly comeback. However, it was a sad ending for Do-young when he received a smash of a lifetime, crushing his nerves and even taking his eyesight for good. From being an ambitious judoist to ending up blind. What would be of the young man? Would it be the end of his career? His coach Soo-yoon wonders at a hospital bench after receiving the news about the accident. Elsewhere in a prison, ex-conman Dushik, Do-young's elder brother, goes over the news of the national athlete on a cutout section of a newspaper that he had hidden between his Bible pages. He does this as he prepares for an interview following his application for parole, which he passes after much swearing by his brother's name and prevailing conditions. Upon arrival at Do-young's door, he catches a whiff of his brother's success. Impressed, he says, "I never thought Do-young would shine hope on me." He rang the doorbell but nobody answered. Dushik then decided to jump over the fence and let himself inside the house. To his surprise, the house is filthy. He leaps over the trail of clothes and spilled food and reaches a dark room where his brother lay in bed all covered up. The room was stuffy if not stinking, thus Dushik went ahead to open the curtains for some sunlight as he spits mean comments at his now blind brother, who reciprocated the energy. Dushik makes his way to the kitchen. One could see how badly he had been looking forward to a warm homemade meal by the way he ate the steaming hot noodles. In between blowing his burning food, he reassures Do-young that he is only going to live with him for a year until he completes his parole and that he did not even want to live with him anyways. The evil brother yells across the kitchen that his only business is himself and not to take care of his miserable young brother. Do-young ignores him and gets up to draw back the curtains, then retreats to bed. Only hunger would see Do-young out of his room later that day to get a pack of noodles just to have a few bites of them while they were still raw. Dushik finds him on the floor after he tripped, and as he tried to give him a helping hand, he was met by horrific rejection. One could see it in Dushik's eyes that reality was harder on his little brother, and as hard as he tried to ignore the soft spot he had for him, he was saddened by the young man's hardship. While visiting Do-young, Soo-yoon, amidst her usual phone call to convince him to open the door, finds out it is already open but does not pick up a clue. She starts to clean the house and cook when Dushik startles her, and the pair gets to know each other even though they did not get along. While Soo-yoon could tell that Dushik didn't care for his brother enough, she still raised concerns about the welfare of Do-young, but she was constantly dismissed by Dushik until she yielded. Soo-yoon goes ahead to bring Do-young out of his room for the meal but then notices that he was unconscious. On reaching the hospital, Do-young was assessed and discovered that he had an empty stomach and suffered malnutrition, and Soo-yoon couldn't help but reprimand his brother for letting it get this far. Back at home, Dushik expresses his dissatisfaction to his blind brother about his self-sabotaging tendency to not eat, to which Do-young pays no attention. He further states that his blind brother should be grateful to him for his cooking service. However, Do-young stops him in his tracks when he says that noodles do not deserve all the praise Dushik demands. As Do-young leaves for his usual rabbit hole, he catches the scent of his cologne on his brother and stops to confirm. His brother did not take it well and the two wrestled each other to the ground. Dushik visits the bank but is turned away when he tries to access his brother's money without his presence of power of attorney. Therefore, at mealtime, Dushik pretended to encourage his little brother to eat and was being extra kind with the false allegations that seeing his brother starve himself made him sad. All was well until Dushik sneaked in his conniving intentions of moving their parents' charnel house, thus needing the consent of the two brothers, which would then need Do-young's seal. He pauses for a minute to contemplate before asking Dushik why his seal would be necessary for moving the charnel house. He was within his rightful boundaries to ask, but the elder brother acts surprised that the young one would dare to be skeptical of him, and therefore guilt trips him. Little did Do-young know that he was right and that his brother was indeed pulling his old tactics on him, so he proceeded to hand over the seal. Soo-yoon pays Do-young another visit and brings up the idea of Do-young starting judo again, but this time around as a Paralympic, but he adamantly refuses. Meanwhile, Dushik has been shopping for a car and partying overnight, and even scoring a girl whom he tries to sneak into his little brother's house unsuccessfully as Do Young chased her away. Dushik's parole hangs on a thin thread as Do Young momentarily picks up his phone to request moving into a facility for the blind just to get rid of his evil half-brother. Upon the arrival of his facilitators, Dushik manages to turn them away, but he takes their advice and asks Do Young places he would like to visit to relieve his depression, and Do Young requests to be taken to the charnel. The request sparked sad memories, including how Dushik left home never to return, leaving his siblings to bury their dead parents. Dushik, out of goodwill and triggered memories, takes his younger brother to the sauna to catch up some more as he gives him a body scrub. Later, while shopping for clothes, an older man ignorantly shoves defenseless Do Young to the ground and is unapologetic, prompting Dushik to come to his brother's aid. If the older man had known better, he would not have engaged the elder brother, but he went ahead to shove Dushik to the ground too, an opportunity Dushik was awaiting. He exaggerated his fall, claiming to be hurt more than he did, and ended up being attended to in the hospital. Beside him, his brother stretched his caring hands for his so wounded elder brother, unaware of his brother's con strategy to get away with a cash settlement from the man. Soo-yoon gives the Paralympic career discussion another attempt, but her efforts turned futile, especially with Dushik taking his brother's side. To everyone's surprise, Do Young asks for food himself. He asks for pork belly, which Dushik dashes to buy. At the butcher, Dushik bumps into one of his neighbors, Dae Chang, that had been terrorizing him since he came out of prison, and he was surprised that the man was a priest. So he welcomed him for dinner. At the dinner table, Dushik was funny and sarcastic as Soo-yoon cared for Do Young's meat wraps and fed him. For the first time in a long time, Do Young smiles and laughs. For once he is happy. Even Soo-yoon commends his elder brother for his good conduct. The brothers' bond gets stronger as Dushik tries to get his younger brother onto the hang of daily activities like doing dishes and talking to girls, and so girls became an item on their to-do list. Dushik gives his half-brother a haircut and styles his outfit for a night out at the club. Do Young gave up the rendezvous after he got lured into kissing an ugly prostitute. One day Dushik gets a message from the hospital to come in for his results from the tests he had to do to con the older man. The doctor gives him the bad news that he only had 3 months to live. Adding salt to the injury, the hospital could not book him an appointment soon enough. As if the emotional breakdown he had was not enough, his brother burns himself while trying to make him breakfast. In frustration, Dushik treats his brother's burns and takes him to their mother's charnel house to pay tribute, and then later talks to him about his judo career, that he should heed Coach Soo-yoon's advice of participating in Paralympics athletics. The older brother meant his words, so he took Do Young to the pitch the following day so he would kickstart his new phase in judo. Do Young wished that his brother would understand how difficult it is to navigate life in blindness. He was scared. He could not see himself doing anything without his sight, and this angered his elder brother, who slaps him across his face. After enough persuasion, Do Young ran his first stretch with his brother cheering him on. His eyes could tell the story of his terror and his fear, but his stride showed his strength and courage as he trusted his brother would catch him when he falls. Coach Soo-yoon receives the greatest news of Do Young agreeing to join the Paralympic competitions from Dushik as they strategize on his management and support, because being a coach for regular athletes, Soo-yoon could not coach Do Young. Dushik reveals to Coach Soo-yoon that he has cancer and will not be around long enough to manage his brother's career, therefore Soo-yoon would have to step in. He ends their meeting and proceeds to return the car he bought with his brother's money. What a plot twist. Meanwhile, Soo-yoon is leaving her job to take Do Young through his Paralympics training, but her manager is not having it. Do Young gathers courage, and with the support of his brother and coach, he picks up a walking stick for the first time and steps into a judo training game. Dushik yells to his brother over the game, "Are you afraid you will hurt your opponent?" At that moment, Do Young remembered he was a dangerous athlete and fought his way up to tie with his opponent. It was a victory that he even came, but now that he scored a point, it was more than just victory. Day after day, Do Young attended training while Dushik lived his days off on medication, but was very intentional about his short life. He stocked ramen for his brother, replaced all breakables, removed all obstacles that Do Young would trip over, trimmed table corners to round ones, and added more handles on walls and padded door entries, all to mitigate accidents and injury for his brother. One time when Dushik ordered Chinese food, the delivery man looked familiar, only to be taken aback that it was his pain in the back neighbor Dae Chang on the job, and once again he welcomes him with the same food he delivered to cure his curiosity. Later that evening, Du Young arrives home and for the first time he notices that the house is a lot different, in a good way, something that made Dushik a proud brother's keeper. Du Young goes on to reveal to Big Brother that he is participating in the upcoming competitions in Brazil. Dushik is happy for him as he packs his suitcase and cheers him on about the possibilities of the trip, but he pulls the rug under his feet by telling him he won't be able to accompany them to Brazil. However, Du Young is very understanding that his brother could use the opportunity to be a high school dropout. Du Young's performance was excellent, qualifying him for the quarterfinals. Back at home, Dushik nurses his illness when his young brother calls to brag to him, but Dushik could hardly keep up the conversation amidst all the pain. Dae Chang stays with Dushik while being admitted and promises to nurse him in his end times. Coach Soo-yoon tries to get Du Young to keep his composure at his final match as he gets traumatic flashbacks about the day he lost his sight, and she finds herself spilling the truth about Dushik's cancer. She did not know it yet, but it was a blessing in disguise as Du Young went ahead to call his elder brother and the two had a candid conversation that sparked the purpose to go back and fight. The referee calls for the start and Du Young is flipped to the ground at the first attempt, then the second time, and this time his right arm is injured. Soo-yoon yells instructions from her coach podium while cheering him. His brother watches him in tension on television together with Dae Chang. Du Young enters his last round of the match and is prepared to make everything in the past count, and sure enough, he pinned his opponent down and won. Du Young's win goes beyond the gold medal. It is a win over the very thing that put him down with blindness, a win with his estranged, annoying brother and their broken bond, over his fears, his self-sabotage, and self-doubt. It was a win for others, not just Du Young, everyone who believed in him and encouraged him. His brother, Dushik, left the world a better brother because of him and left the athlete a voice message to assert to him how far he has come. Du has won the battle against himself as he now gets out of bed early, makes himself breakfast, feeds himself throughout the day, and dresses up to go outside. It is the win of all wins. Please like and subscribe, and click the bell icon to get notifications about new movie recaps.